hanging out at the market with my friends? That's what I should be doing. But can I?
Princess!
No.
Spellbound. After having an embarrassing debut with Luck 2 years prior, Skydance Animation is coming back with another chance to present themselves as the signature animation studio of Apple TV+.
Perhaps at one time, but not anymore.
No, this has nothing to do with the whole Skydance Paramount deal. While Skydance Media itself is still in a strong position, their animation division is a complete mess. After releasing just one movie and a short-lived series on the platform, Apple broke up with the studio because Skydance's animated projects are said to be over-budgeted and creatively weak, which is not a good sign for their next features, even with the big Disney names that they got. They tried looking for a new home for their future films, but just about every major distributor wanted no part with the seemingly hopeless studio. It wasn't until October of 2023 when Netflix decided to give them a chance and sign a new multi-year deal to have Skydance contribute to the streaming platform's large supply of animation. There was even a claim that, in the long run, Netflix wants to have Skydance to be their main animation studio. Yes, I know that they already have their own animation studio that's literally called Netflix Animation, but I'm not the one making these weird allegations. But since the studio became part of the Netflix family, they were able to resume releasing their works, starting with their second feature, Spellbound. It had been in production since the founding of the studio, but it promised to deliver more than what they did on Luck, doubling down on the magic, the personalities, the world building, and especially the fact that the disgraced former head of animation at Disney, John Lasseter, produced the film. Safe to say that the marketing did not do this movie any favors. But now that we're going into the kingdom in Lumbria, will this have the magic needed to be a lovely animated film? Or does this spell feel like Netflix inherited a curse? Let's find out. The story. One important note about John Lasseter is that he is a great admirer of Studio Ghibli and Hayao Miyazaki, and this is still true to this day. The reason why I bring this up is because some of that did influence Spellbound, as the feature shares a strikingly similar story to Spirited Away. It's about a girl who has to go through this magical land in order to restore her parents who were turned into creatures. In this case, however, the king and queen of Lumbria were turned into monsters, and it's up to Princess Elian to bring them across the dark forest of eternal darkness and find the light inside them to turn them back into human.
Suddenly, boom! Something just burst. When it was over, my parents were cursed!
Of course, there are some clear differences as well, as Spellbound tells a story in a more Americanized way. That, and the storytelling is possibly the worst element of this movie because of how it is completely disorganized. In fact, the problem starts at the very beginning when we're first introduced to the parents at the 4-minute mark.
Like actual monsters, for real!
Keeping the secret is ruining my wardrobe!
Yes, they're immediately monsters. They only save the backstory for the musical numbers, which is not an effective strategy, thus making the heart of the picture and the viewer's possible connection to the characters virtually non-existent. I'll get into details about this later, but this is an example of how the flow of the narrative is very much all over the place. I even noticed how the acts handle the plot can be completely different and the changes can be jarring. In the first act, the speed of the story can go stupidly quick as it rushes to explain Elian's situation on how she's out of the castle to go on her quest. Then, when she and her parents go through the forest, the momentum abruptly stops and frequently stalls so that the movie can be over 90 minutes as the parents slowly become themselves again. And the more it keeps padding itself with filler and keeps repeating the same plotline of dodging the great darkness caused by their conflict, the more that the other problems are highlighted.
I am a mother-loving national treasure, and this is how I had to spend my morning, designing a monster pooper scooper.
Which reminds me, when the trailers say that this is also from the co-director of Shrek, they're specifically referring to the film's director, Vicky Jackson, who is also known to helm the 2004 movie Shark Tale. Of course, no disrespect to Jackson, but the reason why I bring up Shark Tale is because Spellbound's comedy is a lot like the DreamWorks film. And by that I mean that the comedy makes this kind of hard to watch. Just about every attempt at being funny either falls flat or it makes the experience aggravating where it doesn't seem to understand how humor works. It feels like it's a comedy not because it has some clever jokes that it wants to present, but because it's a requirement as an animated kids film, with each joke hindering the movie as it has to dumb itself down for younger viewers with gags that can drag on for too long or have modern references that'll make itself dated.
Just speak a command and press a button.
Speak a
You just have
command.
to
Go.
You gotta
Go.
just press.
Go, Father.
Just
Go.
press.
But as you may notice by watching these clips, the storytelling and the comedy are not among the feature's top priority. Instead, its main mission is to capture a certain feel, and that's to be like a Disney movie. From the magic to the songs to the cute sidekicks, it's clear that it wants to be Disney, and it's even more obvious when you fully watch the picture. And yet, the more it tries, the more it makes itself look worse because it loses its sense of originality, as it aims to act like someone else and copying another studio's formula to make itself stand. It's funny because it makes me think of another movie that tried to do the same thing, but its intentions make it better by comparison, and that is Wish. That movie tried to accomplish a similar goal of trying to be a Disney film. Not only because, well, it actually is one, but it also wanted to honor the studio's 100th anniversary and highlight what makes their stories timeless. Was it able to successfully do that? Not really. But at the very least, there is a sense that the filmmakers behind it wanted to do something special and pay tribute to the legacy of the animation studio. Even if the end result didn't turn out great, it didn't take away that the team was ambitious and genuine in their intentions. With Spellbound, on the other hand, all I could see with its intentions are nothing but vain. It has John Lasseter's fingerprints all over it, where he desperately wants to get back what he lost due to his uncontrollable lust for women and alcoholism. And the only way he could do so is by making his own Disney movies at a different studio. It's not really a movie, but more like an existential crisis in the form of a musical. And yes, I am pinning this on Lasseter because if the marketing is presenting him as the main selling point of the picture, and entertainment journalists are continuously portraying Skydance Animation as his great comeback with no regard to his victims that he harassed, then fine, let's call it his movie, and he's the reason why it sucks.
Ooh, wow, you ain't kidding.
I can assure you that there are some good things that can be said about this movie. The story and the writing's craftsmanship is absolutely not one of them. The animation. If there is one thing to look forward to from Skydance Animation, is that they deliver some great looking visuals. Unlike the writing and the producing, I could sense that the animation team is giving it their all to create the best project that they possibly could. The only problem is that their biggest obstacle that's preventing them to make their films even better is the studio's leadership, and they're apparently well aware of this. There is an allegation going around that the animators at Skydance hate John Lasseter because of how he's hoarding all the creative control, along with enabling a toxic work environment with his own boys club vision. And if true, that honestly shows a bit with Spellbound, where the team did the best to make this look beautiful, but there are some things that are holding it back from its full potential. If I'd have to point to the best thing from this movie, it's that it got very creative with the world building. It presents Lumbria as this colorful world that is inhabited by many unique creatures, most of which are a combination of animals, and areas that have their own physics. If anything, while the film doesn't focus much on the environment, They do offer something interesting to look at with all of its vibrant natural colors and have a bit of wonder to show how there can be some unexpected surprises at every corner in Lumbria.
Come on, show me what you got.
Along with that, the visuals went extra on the character animation, not only going big with the personalities and make the most out of their expressions, but their shining moments are during the musical numbers to have some elaborate choreography. They don't happen in all the songs, but when they do, it shows that the animators wanted to add some extra spice to make them feel like actual show-stopping tunes. I'll admit that what Skydance animation can visually do is impressive. There are a lot of great ideas that the team wanted to do with a fantasy world like this, and they were able to pull them off well. And yet, I can't help but find that there is something about this that isn't Skydance's best. When compared to their previous works like Luck and Wondla, Spellbound received a bit of a downgrade. Sure, there are those same designs like in Luck where they look like they're shamelessly copying Disney's look, but the one that stands out to me is how it looks like there were some shortcuts that were done during the production. It's weird because they say that these movies were given giant budgets, yet there are some parts that look like they have to take the cheaper route and reduce the technology to finish the scenes. One prominent example is The Great Darkness. The effects in this film are generally good to show the magic that's in this world, but seeing that tornado always makes me unintentionally laugh with how out of place it looks compared to the rest of the film. Seriously, you expect me to see these swirly lines as the big threat?
This isn't the time!
Move out!
I would lie if I said that there was no effort put onto this picture whatsoever, because the animation proves that there are some people who care to make their contribution the best that it could be. This may not be the best visuals from the studio, but I do consider this as solid animation. The characters. Much like Elian's mission to make her parents human again, the case of the characters is quite complicated and messy. This is a movie that wants to be heartfelt and have the love between the princess and her mother and father be the driving force. On top of that, it features an all-star cast to bring these characters to life with their top talent, and I'll admit that's the better part of them. The one who I consider as the standout performance in the film is Rachel Zegler as Elian, who did not hold back on letting out her emotions with her acting, on top of showing off her incredible singing voice.
Things like that! Sleep on! Can't we go to where they fly?
But despite their goal of family love and some good actors, there's nothing about them that I feel like I can emotionally connect with. And this is mainly caused by the devastating writing. Remember how I said that the film starts with the parents immediately being monsters? The issue with it is that the movie leaves out any reason to why we as the viewer want to see them go back to being human. There's nothing beforehand that shows Elian's initial relationship with them or establish what their bond means to her, which could have benefited to establish both the importance of her family and the core problem that needs to be fixed. Yes, they do show that afterwards during some of the musical numbers, but again, they're not really effective and only present a generic portrayal of a royal couple with their daughter. And to make matters worse from that, the film carries a bad message. In short, it's a movie that explains that you should always be positive and loving and that conflicts turn you into a monster. What I hate about this message is that it portrays this in a black and white way where having any negative emotions is bad. Yes, while conflicts can be destructive, they're also unavoidable and just part of life. It's okay to have fights with your loved ones because resolving them is what makes your bond stronger. And yet, this movie portrays them as the antagonists of the picture. This is like if you take Inside Out and you make sadness the villain. It completely misses the point to an integral part to how love works. Conflicts can hurt, but they're also essential. And the fact that the movie ignores that part makes itself and even its characters unappealing. including Alien, who spends the film just seeking out toxic positivity, hoping that can solve her problems.
Say you're done? Finished? Goodbye? What about me?
Alien, please.
As for the rest, the humor is what ruins their personalities, and the more they try to be funny, the more annoying they get. Sure, not everyone tries to be a comic relief like Minister Nazara or the lead's monstrous parents, but that doesn't stop them from trying some humor and fail in the process.
There must be so much you want to say to me.
I have to release liquid from inside myself.
Then again, they do try to be more than the ones who are actual comic reliefs, such as the Oracles, Sunny and Ludo, who are just the odd couple who supply the modern jokes that are supposed to be relatable.
There is that pixie couple we play pinochle with. They're not very magical, though.
They're not very good pinochle players either.
And then there's Bolinar, a pompous advisor who ends up tagging along Alien's journey where some magic accidentally made him swap bodies with the girl's purple pet. Oh wow, now they're resorting to fully ripping off Wish with a cute, funny animal sidekick who gains the ability of speech? This movie really is desperate to steal from Disney. But unlike Valentino, Bolinar is the more cynical type of sidekick whose main role is to make remarks on the absurdity of the adventure and trying to adapt to his small furry body. But again, what prevents him from being enjoyable is the film's awful comedy. And the more I think about it, the more I realize his role in the story is pretty much worthless, as he's only there because it's something that Disney would do.
Your turn, Bolinar. Say something.
I wish I was dead.
There could have been ways to make these characters stronger and more meaningful if it focused more on capturing the heart. And I'll give it that the actors did a good job with the materials they worked with, but that is far from enough to make the adventure worth it with this cast. There's not much that the characters could do when the story and the comedy is so hopeless. The songs. As much as this tries and fails hard to be like Disney, the one element that had the most potential to emulate that style is with the music, since Alan Menken was brought on board as the composer and songwriter alongside his partner on Tangled, Glenn Slater. But if you only saw the trailers, you wouldn't have known that until the last minute. Actually, no, people were not asking. They were calling out your garbage marketing for never acknowledging the composer that people like because you were so hyper-fixated on that sex pest that is your producer.
You're messing with us, right?
But back to the songs, I'm sure there were some high expectations from a legendary name like Menken. And I'll give him credit that his contribution does help improve the experience, but admittedly, not by a lot. The score is very nice and goes all out to have it feel like a fantasy adventure. It does help add to the wonder of the world building with the use of a large orchestra to emphasize the magic that can be found across the land. As for the songs themselves, it's unavoidable that they feel like Disney because of how they have that style that is distinctively from Alan Menken. Yet on their own, I say they're pretty decent. Obviously not the best or the most memorable of his works, but still among the better parts of the picture. In fact, whenever a song comes up, they feel like a break from the horrible comedy, and I can relax to have a little moment of actual quality. What I personally consider to be the better ones are those that can separate themselves from the feature itself. If they could stand as their own single, they could be enjoyable to listen to, such as Way It Was Before and Look for the Light.
There's got to be a way back to the way it was before.
Out of the night to a new day where you will find all the light that you need.
However, if they do rely on the movie's narrative, they don't really function as well because they have to include parts of the broken down story in its lyrics. It's like if songs like My Parents Are Monsters and Step by Step could have been a lot better if they were used in a different movie.
Frankly, I know that even though they are behaving like monsters, angry and wild, easily riled, raging and braving like monsters.
Step in a new direction, step towards a new perfection. Step after step until all our problems are gone.
step by step.
However, by the second half of the feature, even the songs start to struggle as their purpose becomes more for filler than to have this be a musical. Especially when they get progressively weaker and less amusing, like I Could Get Used to This.
I could get used to this! More than just used to this! How about a most wholehearted toast with some kind of juice to this?
By Menken standards, this is on par with the songs he wrote for the Disney live-action remakes. They're not terrible, but they are nowhere near as great as the original masterpieces. I highly doubt people will remember these songs in general, but they are among the movie's better elements because of how terrible the rest can be by comparison. If there is one movie musical with songs from a Disney Renaissance songwriter that you have to watch right now, it's gotta be Wicked. This, on the other hand, is a pass. Spellbound is a failed attempt to recreate Disney's magic. It's as if it saw the reception of their more recent films like Strange World and Wish and got too cocky thinking that it could do better, but the end result turned out to be so much worse. Yes, there are some elements that are well executed, such as the nice animation, the beautiful score, some decent songs, and some solid voice acting, but the rest caused the experience to be unpleasant with a disastrously disjointed story, characters that can be unappealing, a badly handled message, and unbearable comedy. With how it so desperately wants to be a Disney film like it's from the 1990s, I recommend to just watching a Disney movie instead. What's the point of seeing a subpar copycat when you can have the real deal? Even Wish is more competently made and more worthwhile to watch than this. And if you want another recommendation, then how about giving this a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this review? And if you want some more fun, then join my Patreon where you can get some awesome rewards while supporting my work. This just highlights the critical problem that the studio has yet to have an identity of its own. And a major part is because of John Lasseter. Even if you look past his history of sexual misconduct, there's no point in keeping him in the industry. His creative leadership is now as effective as an AI generator. While I wouldn't call this the worst animated film you'd find on Netflix, there is a lot of better magic that you could find elsewhere.
What are we gonna do?